Hey everybody. Today I wanted to talk about self-esteem. So I wanted to start off with um back when I had my depression. I would go to like my mother or friends or something, and when I would talk to them about how I felt, like my mood and the sadness and all of that, they would say things like, "Well, you need to learn to love yourself." And I would say, "Well, how does one do that? Like, give me a list, I'm ready." And I couldn't figure that out. So, as I've been spending time by myself and trying to connect with, my faith and all of that, I basically have learned that instead of just like rushing to put lotion on your hands, like when you do it, if you're like thinking about it, like I deserve the moisture in my hands. I deserve to have smooth skin. I deserve to have these things. Once you start like thinking about it and processing things and literally focusing on what you need to do or what works for you. Some people it's putting makeup on, um some people it's doing their hair or painting their nails and just doing things that are little actions that tell you that you're worth it and that you deserve just like everybody else. um it's not an easy task because depression likes to make you not want to do things like that, but you have to push through it a little bit. And one of the other things that I noticed when I was, trying to feel better about myself, I started thinking like, when do I remember being happy? And I would say like, okay, back when I was a teenager, I was happy. Okay, why was I happy? What was going on? What was I doing then? What's that I'm not doing now, or what was different then than from the current day? Um, and so I thought back and I thought, well, when I was like 17, I felt like I could do anything. I felt, very adventurous. I felt curious, like children, you're curious to do things. Something interests you and you're not afraid to jump into it, even though you have no experience. It's like there was no fear when I was younger. So I started to try to bring that back because it made me happier before. So I started to do things that I would do back then, um, I've had 6 kids. So after you have like a bunch of children and your weight's not what you want it to be, and, you got stretch marks, things like these things are just superficial. And in the time of dealing with it, it feels like it's like serious. It feels like it's important and all of that. And then when, like I said, when I started my journey with faith, it kind of taught me because, you get into this place where if you're in the quiet and you're by yourself and you drowned out the noise, that you can actually communicate with God and hear what he's saying to you. I don't hear him saying it. It's not like I'm hearing voices, but all of a sudden a thought will be in my head that wasn't in there before. And that I know didn't come from me. It's like an answer to a question that I've asked him when I've prayed, and things like that. So one of the things also that was very good for me that I learned was I feel like, when I'm going through a deep depression and you get to this place where you've been depressed for all these years, when I first started meditating, I started to connect with that inner child. I started to say to myself, like, you know, why do I bully myself? Like, I started to question that. Like, I have, like I was saying a moment ago, the stretch marks, the weight that you gain when you have kids. It's like all of a sudden you're not comfortable in your own body and you see these things as flaws instead of just growing. When we grow, like the longer somebody lives, the more scars you're going to have. It's just whether you cut yourself with a glass that breaks in the sink, or you do something more detrimental. But at the end of the day, all of us go through things, and scars are really just a reminder of a lesson. And it's also a reminder that you've been through some stuff and you're still here. So it really is just a matter of how you see things. Like it really is all in your own perspective. You can look at the flaws or you can look at them as positives. And I choose now to see the positive, because I feel like with depression, that's very much what it is. It's that you're not seeing things the way other people see them, as far as like you go. Like I go and talk to people all day long every day, but then I'll take a picture of myself and I'll be like, "Oh my god, that picture's terrible. I can't do it." So that's one reason why my first episode, um I went ahead and I just recorded that first episode, poison ivy and everything. Because it doesn't really matter. Those things are not really what's important. And I learned through my experience where I was visited by Jesus in a meditation. That was such an incredible experience. And it's like, I started to realize that we are not here for the reasons we think we're here. We're not here to do physical world things and to achieve a lot of things. We're here to see if we can stay true to God through just helping each other get through this. We're all having this experience and we're all part of God. Like it's helping someone else. That's why it feels good when you help someone that's in need and you do something, and then their gratitude that they give back to you, it's soul filling. It's like food for the soul. I don't know how to explain it, but um I started to realize, like, the things that I like, negative self-talk, that's another thing that affects your self-esteem. Negative self-talk, it's like, you'll think, oh, that's when you start thinking like, oh, I have the stretch marks, and oh, I've got, some extra weight, and oh, I'm getting older, and my skin looks different than it did before. And it's like, these are just stages of life. And I also find that when we try to resist them and try to avoid them from happening or stop them from happening, we're just basically explaining ourselves. I do feel like it, for the majority of the time, it's really just a matter of seeing things differently. And I do my best now to look at the positive in everything that I can. And I say, I said to myself one day, when I had, after my experience with my faith, that led to my strong faith, after that experience, I just started to like ask myself questions like, why do I bully myself? Like, so I allow the bully, the inner bully, to say things like, oh, you've got a big pore on your nose. Okay, so that's not that serious. Do I treat people with respect? Do I treat people with love? Do I go out there and say kind words when they're needed, and try to do things? And when I help people and they say, oh, let me give you some money or something, I always just say, no, I just prefer you to pay it forward. One day you're going to come across somebody who's in need, and when you can, you just help them. And I feel like the world's a better place by default. I feel like it affects the energy collectively, because if, believe it or not, a bad day can be contagious. You can have a bad day and then you can take out your bad day on somebody else, in which turn they in turn now are having a bad day, and then they go on and spread it. And just like negativity can spread, so can positivity. So I just feel like it's a very important lesson to just be kind to people, because just like we have all these struggles going on, sometimes we can forget that everybody's going through something. Even especially the ones that don't show it, because when people, you have depression, we're very good at hiding it. We put a smile on our face and we're friendly and we're kind, and nobody even knows that inside we're like a bundle of mush just falling apart. So I learned to, like, question the bully, the things that it says to me, and the inner bully. And I just say to myself, like, you would never speak like that to someone else. So why is it okay for me to speak to myself like that? So I started taking things like, okay, it was like, okay, so you're stupid. That's one of the things my negative self-talk used to say. And then I would say, well, that's hard to believe, because when I was in school, I used to get straight A's and B's, and I had absolutely very little effort that I had to put in. It was like, I understand things quick. I'm a quick learner. So, I don't believe that. I'm stupid. So that basically was something that the inner bully said that I could just negate and say, okay, that's not true. So now what else do you have? And then it was like, well, you're overweight. Okay. I can diet and go to the gym and eat healthier. So what else do you got? And eventually, after negating all of these different things, or the things that I couldn't really negate, but I could change and fix, I started to realize that this inner bully is just that. It's just a bully, somebody that feels insecure. And I don't know why I want to bully myself when I wouldn't bully anyone else, but that's kind of how that's like what it does. Anxiety, depression, it all does that. And we'll get into that when I get into an anxiety episode, because anxiety will have you convinced of some crazy things, even though it's not logical and it doesn't make sense. When you're experiencing anxiety, you can be a little irrational. But depression is the underlying cause of all other disorders. So I just feel like, I wanted to share this with everyone, because whatever you're going through, find a time where you remember being happy. And what is the difference? What were you doing then that you weren't doing now? Like I said, as I've gotten older, I stopped trying things. Like, I was like, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm just not going to do it because I don't want to make a fool of myself. Well, you know what? Who cares if I make a fool of myself? Fools are fun, you know? So, I feel like, and if I go out and just be myself in front of the world and show my true self, then who can really talk about me? Nobody, because I already know. I've already done the work. So I just hope that this helps somebody. Try to do things that you did when you were happy. Because at the end of the day, that version of myself that was happy when I was a teenager, she's still in there. And I feel like we don't realize that when we have put ourselves into situations that have caused us harm, whether it be a toxic relationship or a toxic job or whatever that we've put ourselves into, that little child inside that had all these hopes and dreams was forced to not have those dreams and hopes. So I feel like it's very important. And one of the things I did for my own self therapeutically was I apologized to myself, that younger version of myself. I apologized for making stupid decisions, and I apologized for not listening to everybody that said, like, you need to quit that job or you need to get out of that relationship. And I just kept holding on for love because I'm a good person. And you can be a good person, but that doesn't mean that it's okay for you to allow others to mistreat you. Because how you allow others to treat you is how they'll continue to treat you. So boundaries are very important, and that will be another topic of discussion in another episode. Just to give you a heads up of some coming episodes, boundaries, anxiety and panic attack, things like that. So, but, just make amends with yourself. And I told myself that I was sorry for allowing these men to treat me in bad ways and to stay as long as I did. And I'm sorry that instead of, trying to live my dream and created the dream life that I always thought I could have, which I still can now that I'm aware and in control of my life. There's no such thing as too late. I'm always telling people who are in their 80s and whatnot and above, even. I've told a couple of 90-year-old people, like, it's not too late to go back to school. It's not too late to, to do this. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And that's my thing. I had no idea how to do a podcast. I still don't really, but I'm learning, and I'm trying to build a website so I can get a blog that goes with it, because I really would like to, like, the instructions on what I did to kind of like give an example of the things that I did as exercises to improve my mental health, and it paid off. I would like to share that on the blog version of this, and then I want to tell the silly stories on the podcast that relate to those same topics each week. Now, I'm having issues with the website. As soon as I get that up and running, I will let you know. But there's I've never done a website before, so things are not as easy as they used to be when I was younger, and all the new technology, I'm still learning it. But when I decided to be like I was when I was a teenager and be fearless and be ready to take on anything and tackle things that I didn't understand, and just take that leap of faith. This podcast is one of those things. I mean, I'm right now it's on YouTube, but I'd like to have it on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and maybe Spotify and, some other platforms. I'm not sure, but I definitely may not seem like it's all done professionally, but it will get better, I promise, because I'm determined to learn. And that also helps boost self-esteem, is when you accomplish things that you want to do. And even if people tell you that you're crazy, oh, you'll never do this, don't listen to people, because there's been so many people. It's the people that ignore the negative people and the negative comments and the doubting Thomases. It's those people who end up rising to great levels. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I want to be a successful YouTuber or a successful podcaster. That's not what my intention is. And I find that a lot of times intention is what determines who's successful and who isn't. My intention isn't just to be successful on YouTube. I mean, if it happens, that's great. God provides for me. But that's not my intention. My intention is to help others. Because when I was going through it, like I said, people said, love yourself. I didn't know how, and I asked them how to do that, and nobody had any answers. So instead, I went to God, and He gave me some information. And because of that, I'm pushing forward, and I have belief in myself that everything's going to work out. And my true intention is to, maybe when I was so alone in the places that I've been before I got out of my serious 11 years in bed style depression, and got it to a manageable place for now. Basically, it was just because, I've decided to make this happen, and I want to get those things that I did out there, in case maybe something that I did might help somebody else, and maybe it'll give them a light at the end of their tunnel, or maybe it'll help them in their journey with faith. And I just want to help people. I just genuinely want other people to be comforted and loved, and not so, not stuck in all of that trauma. And if I can help just one person, that's a good thing. So until next time, which will be Wednesday at 8 p.m., God bless.